The Syrian Civil War, which began in 2011, has become one of the deadliest and most complex conflicts of the 21st century. What started as peaceful protests soon escalated into a full-blown civil war, involving regional powers, global superpowers, and extremist groups. In this video, we'll explore the roots of the conflict, key events, and its devastating impact on Syria and the world. The Syrian conflict began during the Arab Spring, a wave of protests across the Middle East and North Africa. In March 2011, pro-democracy protests broke out in Syria, calling for an end to President Bashar al-Assad's authoritarian rule. The Syrian government responded with violent crackdowns, which only fueled more unrest. As the protests grew, opposition forces formed and started fighting back, plunging the country into civil war. Ethnic and sectarian divisions, along with long-standing grievances against the Assad regime, further intensified the conflict. By 2012, the fighting had escalated, with opposition groups gaining control of parts of Syria. The war also drew in foreign fighters and extremist groups, including ISIS and al-Qaeda, turning Syria into a battleground for competing interests. The use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime, most notably in 2013, sparked international outrage. Despite calls for intervention, global powers were divided. Russia supported the Assad government, while the U.S. and its allies backed some of the rebel groups. The war continued, with brutal sieges, bombings, and mass displacement of civilians. One of the most significant consequences of the war was the rise of ISIS, the Islamic State, which took advantage of the chaos to seize large swaths of territory in Syria and Iraq. By 2014, ISIS had declared a caliphate, capturing the world's attention with its extreme violence and propaganda. Coalition forces, led by the U.S., launched airstrikes and supported local forces to push back ISIS. After years of fighting, ISIS lost most of its territory by 2019, but remnants of the group still exist, continuing to pose a threat. The Syria war has caused one of the worst humanitarian crises in modern history. Over 500,000 people have been killed, and millions more have been displaced, both within Syria and abroad. Refugees fled to neighboring countries in Europe, sparking a global refugee crisis. Entire cities like Aleppo and Raqqa were reduced to rubble. Civilians endured constant airstrikes, hunger, and a lack of access to medical care. The war has left a generation of Syrians traumatized and struggling to rebuild their lives. The Syria war quickly became a proxy war, with international powers playing key roles. Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah supported the Assad regime, while the U.S., Turkey, and Gulf states provided aid to various opposition groups. The U.S. carried out airstrikes against ISIS and Assad's forces, while Russia intervened directly in 2015, helping Assad regain control of key cities. The involvement of these powers prolonged the conflict and made finding a peaceful resolution even more difficult. Today, while Assad remains in power, Syria is a fractured country. The regime controls most of the territory, but rebel forces still hold parts of the northwest, and Kurdish forces control areas in the northeast. The war has devastated Syria's infrastructure and economy, leaving millions in poverty. Peace talks have taken place over the years, but a lasting solution has yet to be found. The conflict's ripple effects continue to be felt across the Middle East and the world. The Syria war is a grim reminder of how quickly a country can descend into chaos and how difficult it is to end a conflict once it starts. It has changed the Middle East, affected global geopolitics, and left millions of Syrians displaced. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on global conflicts and history. Your support helps us bring more insights to important issues like this.